My name is Gustav Totti, and I'm working out of Stockholm office and supporting Signavio in the Nordic region. Sam, if you could take the next slide. So on today's customer excellence and process intelligence seminar, we have some people, and I would like to introduce Rashmir first, who are from NTT. And maybe Rashmir, you can say some few words about yourself.
Thanks, Gustav. Warm welcome to everyone. My name is Rashmir, and I am located in South Africa, Johannesburg. And I am the current product owner for Signavio at the moment in NTT Limited. And I look forward to sharing my journey with you. I think now I hand over to Rakesh.
Thank you, Rashmir, and hello, everyone. Thanks for making time for this session today. I'm Rakesh Kasai. That picture on the slide is a bit misleading and pre-COVID, but I am Rakesh indeed. I'm a director with BPM-D UK, based out of London. We are a small consulting firm which focuses around developing capabilities around business process management. And NTT is one of our clients, and Signavio is one of our key partners. And today we'll be talking about how we see the role of business process management impacting customer excellence. So over to you, Gustav.
Thank you, Rashmir and Rakesh, for the introduction, and great to have you here. As said, I'm Gustav, heading the Nordic region for Signavio. And for those who doesn't really know, Signavio has been acquired by SAP, so that's a good information to have. So by Q4, we will be fully integrated into SAP. And Signavio has all been around process excellence platform that we deliver to clients. But customer journey is really something warm to my heart. I've been working previously before Signavio in different type of marketing cloud providers like IBM, Adobe, and Oracle. And I've been in many customer journey mapping sessions like this one, where you have a lot of creativity and notes in different colors. And in the end, someone might take a picture, and that information is not really shared upon a wider team within the business. So then someone showed me a solution that could potentially support this initiative. That should still be easy to use. And I think that's really key, talking about solution in this space. It has to be super easy to use so the business can consume the information. And Sam, if you can take the next slide. Because if you look at the business, usually we build silos in all the different aspects of solution that we might have. And if you take a customer journey modeling or customer experience solution, it's very important to have sort of a 360 view of the whole business, encompassing not only customer experience, but risk and compliance, whatever transformation projects you might do, what maybe supporting by RPA solution or other automation solution. So our vision is really to help businesses to build a single source of truth and having a 360 view of all of the processes. So today we will really focus on customer experience and sort of process mining, process intelligence, and show a little bit how that could support potential use. But it's really important that what we talk about can be used for any process and helping you to become process excellence. So with that short introduction, I will just say that we will record this. And if you have any questions, there's a Q&A tab in the bottom. So please put in questions and we will address them later today. Rakesh, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Gustav. So we have a packed agenda today. As I said, we are focusing on how, what are the latest trends we're seeing in this whole customer experience strategy, the challenges a lot of our clients are facing around executing their customer, CX strategy, where what are the traditional methods that have been used in terms of measuring customer satisfactions, and what are the issues around those. Then we also talk about customer journey maps, and I'm sure you must have seen a version of these maps in your organizations or different places that you worked at. But what we're going to talk today about is how does Signavio and the advancement in technology help make customer journey maps more real and help them integrate to your operational processes, and how you can start driving your continuous improvement journey uh, through a customer lens by using this whole integration between customer journeys, business process models, and process mining. But the key thing that we're going to focus on today is a case study that we've just recently delivered with NTT, and Rashmir was going to speak about that experience and how the Signavio suite helped facilitate that ability to look at processes from a customer lens. And then we'll have a brief Q&A section where we'll address any specific questions. So that's broadly the agenda. Moving on, as these presentations go, we start with some facts. As per the Forrester research, which is conducted recently, CX, being a customer experience leader, is a big item on all organizations. Service organizations, yes, but even others do want to focus on customers, and in some organizations customers could be employees or the partners and suppliers and so on. But customers and customer satisfaction is one of the key things, as you can see in this research. In fact, especially in the service industry, like the hotel industry, a 1 point score improvement in your CX index can increase your revenue by 65 million as per Forrester research, right? And I think a lot we see a lot of traction in the clients that we're working with to look at and explore customer experience and build a culture around customer experience in the organization. And there are good strategies around it, but one of the five firms, as per this research, have been able to deliver that. And today we're going to focus on how can we use the latest tool, technology, and approaches, especially as the operations excellence community, right? How do we, the BPM or the operation excellence community has always been tagged to efficiency savings and making an organization more efficient in terms of cutting down operations cost. But the ability to now tie customer journeys and use that to drive your continuous improvement journey actually has a very big impact in this community, because it enables us to make an impact to revenue, right? And that's something we're going to explore with some examples in the session today. So let's start with what are the typical challenges that we have seen or heard from various organizations on this journey, right? So one of the key things I've heard the most is about building the CX culture or the customer oriented mindset in the organization. And that is crucial, because what it's also talking about is building this mindset, not just in the customer facing team, but also in the operations team that's actually supporting and making a good customer experience happen, right? And a lot of CX leaders that we've spoken to, I think their biggest challenge is, yes, we have a good strategy, we have a good plan. How do we get the organization to move along the plan, right? And as most of these initiatives, I think having the executive buy-in top down is important. But in terms of CX, typically you'll have the marketing officer, the CMO, all aligned, and his team, her team aligned to this strategy. Uh, but do you have executive buy-in across the board? Does the operations team also understand the impact of strategy? Does the finance team understand the impact of improving on customer experience and things like that? That's another challenge. It's bringing them together. And then also off late, we've seen a lot of organizations driving, these smart bots, creating bots, chat bots, that can reduce the time it takes to respond to a customer request, and then having these smaller projects going across the organization, but not tied to the overall the overall strategy or the objective, just driven in silos. And that's also another issue that that sort of doesn't drive the organization's plans around the overall CX strategy they have. And then this is based on our our experience in this space. I think it's about having the right skills across the organization, so, and having those skills to talk to each other. So you typically have a good strategy team that designs the strategy in PowerPoints, and understands the voice of customer, captures it, and so on. But that tied to a team that can understand that strategy and also improve the operational processes to improve your customer KPIs is are the skills that need to be in one place. It sort of requires a mix of the good strategy team, some good customer service mindset, also a good mix of operational improvement people that can look at processes, improve those KPIs that matter the most to the customer, and then obviously you need a good IT team. So I think these are typically the challenges that most organizations face in terms of executing their CX strategy. And today we're going to focus our discussion around these. So let's start with what the traditional, CSAT or these various KPIs are that are used to measure and track how good your customer experience is. Now, apart from just the survey fatigue that customers face responding to these number of CSAT surveys they get, one of the biggest issues that we've come across around CSAT is that there's a lot of guesswork in terms of what is causing a bad customer experience. So yes, you've got yeah, at various notes, you've got bad experience from the customer. Uh, but how do you tie it back to the root cause of what's causing that bad experience? Also, net promoter scores are good, easy to respond to, but they then give you an outcome which is very difficult to tie back to what is the cause, that what is that change you bring into the business so that people can recommend, your clients can recommend you more, right? And a lot of these measures are primarily reactive. So you go speak to a customer, and then you do the analysis of these surveys, say at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, and then you spend time deciding on, okay, that means we need to improve this in a region, and so on. And by the time the customer expectations or experience has moved on, because it's very easy for customers to just switch providers or switch service providers in today's day and age. So the question is, how do you make your customer surveys and the data that you get from surveys or speaking to your customer about their experience, how do you make it real, and how do you translate it into practical improvements, right? So moving on, uh, what we have seen is there's that a lot of organizations start with customer journeys, and that's a good place to start. Actually, it starts giving you a view of your typical customer and the journey they take before they buy your product or when they interact with you on a service or an incident, and so on. But most of these, when I've seen at various organizations that we've worked with, they are typically PowerPoints that was created by a strategy team as part of a strategy exercise with a point in time information at that point, and then sort of lost in those discussions. A good looking PowerPoint, but really not translated to the people who actually serve the customer day in, day out. And also it's very difficult to then keep it relevant and have that relevant information published across the business. So that those are the issues we found with typical customer journeys. Also, the other bit that's missing in these journeys is in a good PowerPoint, yes, you can talk about the journeys, you can talk about the customer goals, but there's a lot more to a customer's journey than what meets the eye or what's on these PowerPoint slides. Because yes, there's the typical understanding of what are your touch points with the customer, but these touch points could be people related, process related, system related. Then there are scores that you sort of have a view of a point in time, that this is the net promoter score, this is the CSAT at these various points in the customer journey. But again, these need to be live and refreshed based on, as and when the data comes to the organization, and then most importantly shared with the right people. Then we do capture customer pain points, but that's key in terms of driving your improvements and making it, making that impact to the customer, you know, to the customer experience, is knowing what the pain points are. But based on those pain points, what is missing in most of these depictions of customer journeys is how does that tie to your operational processes, and what are your operational KPIs that really impact a customer pain. For example, if say average handling time for a customer, or for a specific person who's serving a customer is low, that could be a factor of a lot of things, a lot of factors operationally. It's the type of product they are servicing, at the time of the day, the nature of the customer, and a lot of times, say not having the right data in front of the service desk person who's servicing the client actually makes an impact on how well the client is serviced, right? So it's being able to translate a good or a bad customer experience score into what triggers that, and what the root cause of that specific uh, bad or good score is, and being able to then use that behavior and replicate it across the organization is key. And hence there's a lot to customer journey, and that's where I think Signavio has done a good job in terms of bringing all these elements together. So Signavio, just a brief introduction, or maybe a word from the sponsors. But Signavio is a suite. It's a BPM suite. It has been around and known a lot more for its process management capabilities. So you're able to create your business process models, enterprise architecture diagrams, and stuff like that. It also has very good process mining skills. And then you can also do workflow accelerator. So it's sort of, you can do the whole define, measure, analyze, improve, and control bit using Signavio. But one of the key things about Signavio, and I think the differentiation it has, apart from many other things, but the one key thing is the ability to collaborate. And I think that's one of the best features with Signavio. Now that combined with customer journeys, I think is a very good addition to bringing this. Previously we spoke about these different group of stakeholders involved in a customer experience strategy execution project. I think a tool like this, where you can bring all of the information together, not just your customer journey maps, but also their touch points to your processes, and also an integration to mining, which we'll talk about in the next few slides, actually gives you an advantage to not just look at pretty customer journeys, but translate those into real improvement actions, and then also use the change management feature of the tool to communicate the new processes across the organization. So I think that the whole customer experience module from Signavio does that. And I know this picture here on the right looks a little complicated, but let me break this down for you quickly. So basically, with the whole customer journey module and this whole approach to managing continuous improvement from a customer lens, the first key bit is the ability to document your journey, right? So you typically do this for your different customer personas, different buyers, buyer groups, and the advantage of using a tool like Signavio and there are others as well. But the advantage of using a tool, one is you have a central repository. So you sort of creating your enterprise memory. So the work you've done on one customer journey, you keep enhancing it, and it's all reusable. So I know uh, a few conversations that I've had with clients where they talk about it's good to have customer journeys for the happy path. But what we really want to do is be able to create multiple journeys, have variations, and doing something like that without a single central cloud-based tool is a little difficult. So one good advantage of Signavio is, yes, you can capture your customer journey, the typical cycle the customer goes through, describe those, but you can also store all of these as objects that you can reuse to other customer journeys and start linking these so that you can generate reports on these and so on. So that's the first bit where you capture the customer journey. Then you capture a bit more around the customer needs, the goals from the customer. And remember, these keep changing. So the ability to be able to capture these, and based on your changing products and based on your different customer segments that you're targeting and so on, is also key. But it starts giving a view of why the customer is here to the operations team as well. And then, as we discussed, there are various metrics, be it customer effort score, CSATs, NPS, that you would want to be able to capture live and see how you as an organization or a product are doing against the various stages in terms of these scores, right? And here you have an ability to integrate this to your tools like Tableau or Power BI and see this live, so that the information provided to the organization is quicker and is not lost in sort of the analysis paralysis that typically happens in these projects. And then moving on, one of the other things that you can start capturing and is key is to understand how is the customer interacting with your business in terms of the system touch points. What are the key modules they are looking at? How much time are they spending on each of these modules? Because one of the key things that that's recently happened is this introduction of a new metric around customer, which is customer effort score, which is basically the idea that a good service is that the customer doesn't need any service, right? And you're trying to minimize the time the customer spent on accessing your services and products and troubleshooting and so on. So you can start looking at what are the touch points, and then later also start mining how much time your customer is spending on these touch points and whether that's good enough or bad enough. Do you want to get into a more self-service for a customer, or do you want to reduce this, automate it, and stuff like that? So you have the ability to start capturing the various touch points that the customer uses to get into your organization, right? But that's not just systems, it's also the ability to understand what are the processes that they are touching. And this is where this whole suite approach really works, because you start seeing what are the tasks that impact this customer behavior and who's performing these tasks. What are the events that we do internally that's actually improving or contributing to your customer experience. And with Signavio and the process manager capability that Signavio has, you have sort of created your repository, your process repository, have captured your operational processes, and now you can start seeing how the customer looks at those operational processes and what are the interaction points. But having said that, all of this is good information in terms of this is what's happening when a customer is interacting with you. But how do we turn this into into understanding what the improvements are going to look like, right? So yes, you can also talk about who are the people that the customer interacts with in the organization, directly, indirectly. But where this gets really interesting is the fact that you can start tying your customer experience to your operational KPIs, right? So and this bit is interesting because it helps you to zoom into uh, not just a broad KPI about that's the customer satisfaction score in this area, but you can start looking at specific operational KPIs about how much, how are you meeting your SLA delivery time to a customer in a specific region, right? And this is the whole process mining capability. So for those who have not heard about process mining is basically the ability to hook uh, Signavio into your ERP systems like SAP, and then be able to generate your business process or the steps that are really happening on the ground through the system logs. So you can actually discover what's happening real time on the ground in terms of delivery cycle times and volumetrics and compliance and so on, right? So basically the whole idea, and this is what we'll talk about with an example at NTT later, is how do you start harnessing these various pieces of information, your operational knowledge in terms of your processes, your process mining KPI knowledge in terms of being able to understand your processes through process mining and through mining systems data to see cycle time and various KPIs. How do you use that information to start improving your customer experience? And that's something that's very interesting, and we see a lot of traction in this market, because traditionally people have been using process mining for improving operational efficiencies, where you can now start looking at using the same sort of technology to not just understand where you need improvements from a customer perspective, but also be able to track those improvements, be able to manage the behavior, the change across the organization, be able to share all of these pieces of information to various people in the organization, right? So that's uh, the the crux of the story today, right? Is how do you move from traditional inside out process management, where you are where you've been traditionally documenting processes and then uh, finding improvement insights and simulating improvements and so on, to more starting with the customer first. And we have an example later when I give Rashmi the time to speak, and I'll try and finish this as soon as possible. But we look at how NTT did that in a very real sense using one of their processes. But quickly, a few bits around this approach. And this approach, we have parts of this approach we've used at NTT. It's about what we call rapid process improvement, but doing that through a through a customer lens. It's your typical improvement cycle where you define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. However, the way we differentiate this is a few things. One, we look at this top down. So in this sense, top down being looking at it from the customer lens and the customer pain points or the customer touch points into your process, and then looking at it end to end for that customer journey. But then also the other bit that we've learned is how do you best use the technology that I've been talking about, like Signavio, process mining, ability to capture processes, but also start in the process, also engage with the business, the various stakeholders through collaboration, through workshops, get the information from them, because business knows what's really happening, but validate that with the data that you get from mining tools and the other analytics that you do, and then be able to manage these various initiatives and prioritize them uh, based on the lens that you set at the start of the project, right? So we typically do this and get people started on their customer experience execution strategy in weeks, and if you have all the information and if you use the right tools, you can pretty much start on this journey and then gradually develop your capability in this. But what's going to be more exciting is to hear from Rashmir, who'll talk about one of the projects that we recently concluded with NTT. But over to you, Rashmir.
Thanks, Rakesh. So hello to everyone that was not on the call when I introduced myself. I'm from a company called NTT Limited, and we've been working together with BPMD and Signavio on this journey for about, on average, 3 years now. And I just want to say that it's a privilege to be on this panel with them, because they have helped us quite a lot through the journey I'm about to take you on. So a bit of history about the company I belong to. Recently, we only recently became NTT Limited, and it was a combination of 31 companies. So we're going through a digital transformation journey, and it's quite a big organization. And I'm from the area or division of the head office area. So the tool that I own is Signavio, and we indeed service or keep the service up for the rest of the regions to utilize. So the regions of the company that I belong to is my client in this case. So a bit of background about legacy-wise where I'm from. I'm from the legacy company Dimension Data, which was one of the companies that combined to become NTT Limited. Right now, NTT Limited has we employ about 50,000 people all over the world, and we have a global reach of about 11,000 clients. And just to explain to you the sense of footprint we have, the one stat is where we reach 310,000 people around the world, and we're present within 57 countries. So that will give you an idea of how big our company is. Managing that from a group head office perspective is quite difficult on my side, and mining actually helps me with that, business process mining. And that journey will become more clear as we go on. Sam, to the next slide, please. Great. So we all hearing about digitalization and transformation and digital transformation, and that's exactly the journey we're on as NTT Limited. And two of our main focal points for that transformation is one, client engagement and process optimization. In order for us to sufficiently identify the way we are engaging with our clients, if that's sufficient for them or if they need more, that's all to do with the way our processes are being captured and how those processes are being performed in real life. And that's the type of visual analysis or that visual data you allow yourself to see and conceptualize and bring to the business to show them where they could be going wrong, where they need to improve, or what training they need to introduce, and that type of concept. So if we go on, and if I explain to you more about our life in Signavio, this is our landing page. And we try to incorporate the lives of business process mining and our process world in one view. So it makes it easy for our end users to consume, because I get the question. So Rash, where do I find my process and how that is linked to mining? Well, your business process is linked to your data in your systems. And as a result, your business process mining shows you the efficiency of that system with a visual layer of your process. And we try to make that real for our end users when they go into the tool. And I would like them, from my perspective, I need my end users to utilize all the different arenas that Signavio has to offer. And that's what I try to make real here. The customer touch points, well, our customer, or my customer in this case, is my regions. And my regions have their customers. So I'm trying to provide them with the best service and the best use of this tool that I can possibly give them. We have a lot of acronyms, and I want to just touch on one thing, our transformational programs. So to give you an idea of the complexity within our environment, we have been on a journey called S2A, or Simplify to Accelerate. That was one big major transformational program. And process definitions, process mapping were done for that transformational program. And with us now becoming entity limited and combining these 31 companies, we come with a range of difficulties like different HRISs, different ERP systems, different systems to do time capture. And how do you as a business now make that real for everyone? How do we all get to one way of working? Process management and having one source of the truth where people can go to have a look at where they can find this content. One of those is Simplify to Accelerate, or S2A. What we're moving towards with the consolidation and the digital transformation is something called Standard Digital Platform, or I would refer to as SDP, where we're creating a new generation of processes that cater for our digital transformation and where we're moving to in the future. So maintaining this is quite difficult, because you have to logically maintain two sets of truth that may be relevant for particular components or areas of the business and not for some. So that's how we've tried to lay out our landing page. So it makes it easy for people to navigate by themselves, but we've also tried to guide them a little bit in terms of videos and navigation training. And Sam, if we could go on to the next slide. So this becomes a bit more real. So the challenges, and I've touched on the challenges a bit at the beginning, but globally, the reach of our company is gigantic. And to put that into perspective, every region should be working a certain way or the same way, but this is not the case. And there could be various business reasons for that, or it could be just be that they don't have those systems that they're supposed to be working on, implemented within that area yet. So it's very global and it's very contextual to that geographical area. And mining makes that real for us. So the little picture you see with all the lines, that's what we discover when we plug in our source system data, so we can easily at a glance identify the problematic areas, and we can define or determine if this is actually a business reason or if there's another reason. Could we potentially go in to improve or streamline, or is it a case where our process is not documented that well so people don't understand it, or is it a case where we under-resourced and we need more training? So we speak about cross-region and areas consistency. If I have to deal with countries within my regions, it gets even more complicated, because then you're looking at the geographical context of your country to that region, to the global group. So we have to essentially have a bird eye view from the top down and the bottom up to understand if these inconsistencies are things we can go in and improve on. Non-standard practices is something I've touched on already as well. We have tier 2 systems within countries that don't have our tier 1 systems, and it could be a coating system or something like that, but that's specific to that geographical context. So again, it could be a business reason, or it could be purely training purposes. And non-streamlined sales cycle time. So we identifying differences and nuances in the way we end-to-end procure a piece of equipment versus a service versus a license. So we have different nuances, and that's okay. So essentially what we need to do is we need to identify if that's a business reason, or if that's something we can work on to improve and streamline that cycle time to get to our clients more easier and more efficiently. Sam, if we can go to the next slide. So end-to-end process performance, this is based on a POC that I've done with Rakesh and BPMD, and we've been working on this for quite a while now. And at the moment, today, we actually improving on this. But this is what we've done this is what we did initially. So we tried to set up end-to-end end-to-end process performance, from the opportunity to invoice process, the end-to-end process, our operational process. And we identified key client touch points in between those cycle times that added value to the conversations we took to region. For example, Sam, one more click. Okay, we looked at KPIs, very specific KPIs, to meet those that criteria, to show the business how we tracking and what is our status at the moment in terms of time management. So we looking at KPIs, client contract to invoice. How long is that taking region A versus region B versus region C? And then we can look at the best performing region and say, why is this region doing it 10 times faster than the lowest performing region? And as a result, we did sort of a baseline exercise at the beginning. We did it at a regional level. And now what we're doing is we're taking it down to a country level, which gets a little bit more complicated. Sam, if you do a few more steps, right? So we found key client touch points. And if you see the orange line down, you will see that there's one that says cash in, and then one says service goods out. That's the most important client touch point for my regions. They have to deliver and they have to bring cash in as quickly as they can. And we looked at ways we recommended ways from the data we are seeing in which we can potentially go in and streamline and improve that area of the end-to-end performance. So it was quite exciting, that journey. And now we're improving on this. So we're adding additional elements to find additional client touch points, main milestone areas that we can potentially go in and improve on. Next slide, Sam. So how did PI, and in particular process intelligence of Signavio, facilitate this in more detail? Best practice rollout. Find the region or the example that's doing it the best, and ask the question, why aren't we doing it the same way? Why are they taking more time than we, when our volumes are more or less the same? So, those are the type of questions we could ask going in with facts because of process intelligence. And as a result, that brings me to copy to catch up. Let's use that baseline of the best performer, and let's try and get that best performer to try and show us why they're performing the way they are. Same concepts apply. Is it a non-conformance because of a training issue or a resourcing issue or a geographical issue because they don't know, the system they use is different, and those type of conversations. So it was really it was, I wouldn't say a difficult task, but getting there was exciting because you could clearly see the differences in the areas at a glance. And that is something that is the edge in PI. If I would say, I'm a proud product owner. That is the edge Signavio has over the other, the other options or other ways people try to do this type of analysis. And the best part is you have it with your process content. So you have it all in one place. And that is what has helped us drive this more efficiently. The end-to-end analysis, we've led this, we've led this purely to understand the bottlenecks. That's the first thing we wanted to do. And same questions were asked, and we needed to do that for each and every component that you saw in the previous slide. And therefore we needed to touch on different business areas in different regions. And as a result, go in and to those same people say, okay, I recommend maybe we could do it this way. So that was basically my journey for the POC, and the journey is still continuing, and it is very exciting. And PI makes, I guess, the whole focus around this, and I guess the message around this is that we can provide value to our customers via process mining and process intelligence, by at the same time our end users experiencing business processes, the viewing of business processes, using business processes to carry out their day-to-day activities. And if we go to the next slide, Sam, That's it from me. So I now hand over to Rikesh to discuss the way forward.
Thanks a lot, Rashmir. So as Rashmir mentioned, this was an example of a typical process mining project. But while we were doing that, given we were looking at order to cash, we started looking at the customer lens of things and actually looking at how mining and operational process improvements can improve the customer experience and what's the impact on your overall customer satisfaction to that. But in terms of if you were to start having these conversations in your business, as most of us, I'm assuming, are operational excellence or people looking after business performance, business processes and stuff. It's I think something like this is very simple to start and very easy to scale. In a sense, you can start with looking at, so there are two ways to start. One is maybe look at documenting your operational processes and mining your operational processes and discovering them. But the other alternate, if your organization is very focused on customer experience and customer journeys, to start capturing your customer journeys into Signavio, uh, then gradually discovering the key touch points and the business processes that are relevant to those customer journeys, capturing those, mining your customer interactions through the various channels, and then identifying the improvements gradually and making this live and useful for the operations team so that you can start tweaking this and getting to further improvement on your journey. Happy to answer any questions around this today, but broadly, as you said, CX is very powerful once you start combining that to data analysis and operational processes, and actually make it real by improving operational processes. And the key to the successful delivery of CX is to start engaging with the operations, bringing them onto the journey, developing that culture together. And yeah, as an approach, it's best to look at it top down, identifying the high impact journeys, the more churning customers, and the personas you want to target, and then gradually taking it to your different regions, business units, using process mining. So that's briefly the summary of what we wanted to cover in this session today. Happy to take any questions. I know there have been a few, which
Yeah.
I answered one while Rash was speaking, but please go ahead. I think you can type your questions in the Q&A section.
I think we have one in the meantime that we could take. And as to you, Rashmir, when you look at solutions like this, you need to go across many different sort of silos within the organization. How do you drive that within a large organization like NTT, and how do you get management support? Can you?
Yeah, so I think Rikesh alluded to this at the beginning. Without that executive sponsorship and that executive drive, it's very difficult. And thankfully for me, I do have that support from my executive and my management, and I leave the tough discussions to them. And I happily ask them for their advice and their direction in terms of who I need to speak to. Because sometimes you may think you're speaking to the right person, and being the scale and at the magnitude that we are on in this company, you're not 100% sure. So we do engage with our management and rely on them a lot to get us the correct stakeholders to speak to when we do have these engagements.
Great, thank you. And I think, Rakesh, we have one for you here, and it's really about, where do you start and how much time does it really take to get started? Let's say you would like to move fast in this space. Is that possible? And how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think, so typically we can get proof of concepts in terms of ability to prove the concept of this working in your environment in a matter of weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. The time it takes after that is developing the capability in your organization and scaling it. And that we've seen, different organizations do it at various speed. But yeah, I think once you have a business case, the key thing is to identify a business problem that you want to look at, or a specific journey you want to target. And then it's a matter of weeks to be able to do a proof of concept and make it work in your environment with your source data and so on.
Great.
I think Rash will attest to the fact that the doing doesn't take a lot of time. It's the convincing and the getting to the different layers of decision making that usually delays things.
Yeah. I think finding the right people as well. You have to have the right people in the room to help you, move forward once you get the data in.
Mm. And I think we have another question for you here, Rashmi. What kind of solutions or features would you look to when you sort of go through the market? How would you go about doing that before you sort of picked our solution, basically?
So we looked at easeability of use, number one, and in terms of our digital transformation, what was best that suited the way we wanted to go with data, because we always knew we wanted to go along the lines of data. And having your data and your processes in one tool being managed in one area is something that was very how can I say this, attractive at the time. And we did go through that I think it's called a tool verification or something like that at the initial stages, where we got experts in to give us scorings and stuff like that. But in terms of the purpose of digital transformation, that is primarily the reason why Signavio was chosen, because it aligned to our need. And you can see how we're using it, and it's being used for something that that can calculate this data very easily, where if you're using another tool, you would have to configure and code for days, where Signavio can give that to you out of the box. So the main reason was digital transformation and where we were on our journey at the time.
Thanks, Rashmi. Let's see, Rakesh, did you see any more questions here?
Yes, I saw a few questions around the source systems that you can get the data from. I mean, SAP for sure, but Signavio does integrate with all sorts of ERP systems, be it Oracle, Microsoft, Workday, and Salesforce, and so on, right? So that was one of the questions. But Gustav, did I miss something on that?
No, and I think we are open. There's also APIs, so we have other clients using IFS ERPs, for instance, that might not be on the list. So
yeah,
there are numerous ways of working with the different type of applications.
And I think Shelley asked an interesting question. Shelley Davies, a question. The question was, how do you? I mean, they work in a shared service, and many of these steps are off system, so they don't really happen in an ERP system. And how does Signavio, how can you see the full process, including the off system steps? So what I've answered here, Gustav, and please add, is that you can still use Signavio to capture your processes, communicate the processes, whether they're on system or off system. From a mining perspective, Signavio also integrates with a task mining system called Fortress IQ, which basically can record screens and give you the end-to-end mining from Signavio and the task mining solution. And it looks as one solution, and you can still continue your end-to-end improvement. But Gustav, was that?
Yeah, I think that would be correct. As long as the data is reasonably structured, it should be fairly straightforward to use it.
Then I have another question here, Gustav, which is we can all answer, but maybe best for Rashmi, is the process analysis based per system or cross system? I mean,
Both.
yeah.
Both. It gets complicated when you go cross system, because then you need to pull in event data, and people want to see the detail underneath that event data. And sometimes you're limited by what you can pull in between different sources. But essentially, you can pull through and string across event data across all systems, which gives you an end-to-end view of what you're looking at in terms of data, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. In fact, sorry, go ahead, Rash.
Yeah, no, it's fine. RG, you go ahead.
The example that Rash was presenting, we did look at 3 different systems in that end-to-end process. So one of the key things about using process mining is the ability to cut across systems and look at your end-to-end processes, right?
So let's see if we have any more questions. We're also getting here to the hour, and we would like to keep the timing. And thank you. We're also getting some positive feedback. We do appreciate that. And I think Rashmir, a warm applaud to you and Rakesh for really giving a nice presentation here today. And I think if we don't have any more questions, do you have any final closing word, Rakesh?
Well, thanks, Gustav, for hosting us. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Rashmir?
Thanks, everyone. No, I'm glad it was good, and I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Great. And for everybody here, we send out a recording on this, and if there are more questions, you will be able to sort of get a dialogue going with us. So again, thank you very much for attending the session, and we do look forward to meeting you face to face in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gustav. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.